I'm really happy that the article wasn't about the company and it even wasn't about our product. It was about our customer. So her name is Jan. She's 85 years old. She's fiercely independent, married 4 husbands. Okay. And she lived in the middle of nowhere, really one of the most remote places in the United States, in Washington State. She lives in a peninsula, like all alone, fighting like the Pacific Ocean winds. And it's a story about how, as she's trying to remain independent by herself with extreme scoliosis and other issues, how she received an ElliQ, which is our product, our AI companion. And this unique and very special relationship that's being formed between the human and the AI. And I think through Jan's story comes a wider story because we're seeing this across our customer base. This is the first time that humans and robots are living together. She's been living with this robot for a few years already.
Yeah.
And the relationship is a very deep, personal, and trustful relationship.
Welcome to the Aggaeus podcast. Buckle up. This episode is brought to you by Better Weight for Life, transformational weight loss aid, led by U.S. board-certified physicians, providing access to GLP-1 medications like Wegovy and Zepbound that are proven to help you lose weight and keep it off. This episode is brought to you by Kardz.Biz, a business card too good to give away.
So this is Kardz. This is what we make in Kardz.Biz. This is the black Amex of business card, made out of metal, glass polymer, engraved in real gold or silver. And basically you don't give this away. You basically tap somebody's phone and the information is shared. So like you make the best impression in every meeting.
Hello, Dor.
Hi, Haggai. Thanks for having me on your show.
I not only am I delighted, I am honored that this is your exclusive interview after appearing on the Sunday front page of the New York Times.
I don't know about exclusive, but yes. Yesterday's Monday, and yesterday we were super happy to see our product prominent on the front page above the fold, and then 3 full pages in the A1 section. It's like a dream come true.
I'm clapping. I'm already clapping. Amazing. So like maybe we'll start with the end. What was so important in what you do and what you're doing now that the New York Times gave you such a wide coverage, and also, if I understood correctly, from a Pulitzer award-winning?
Yeah. So I have to say that I'm really happy that the article wasn't about the company, and it even wasn't about our product. It was about our customer. So her name is Jan. She's 85 years old. She's fiercely independent, married 4 husbands. Okay. And she lived in the middle of nowhere, really one of the most remote places in the United States, in Washington State. She lives in a peninsula, like all alone, fighting like the Pacific Ocean winds. And it's a story about how, as she's trying to remain independent by herself with extreme scoliosis and other issues, how she received an ElliQ, which is our product, our AI companion. And this unique and very special relationship that's being formed between the human and the AI. And I think through Jan's story comes a wider story because we're seeing this across our customer base. This is the first time that humans and robots are living together. She's been living with this robot for a few years already.
Yeah.
And the relationship is a very deep, personal, and trustful relationship.
Yeah.
And I think what's crazy is that this isn't like people think, okay, maybe in Japan or like crazy geeks in Silicon Valley in their big mansions and I don't know, World War II or their bunkers or whatever. No. These are the people in their 80s and 90s, sometimes 70s, that have not grown around technology, that actually have never successfully navigated technology. And they're the first humans on Earth to build a true long-term relationship with an AI.
Wow.
So that's what the story is about. It's like investigating this relationship and how it formed. And Jan in the beginning was very hesitant. She didn't want the product too much.
Yeah.
We called it an it. And as you'll see, the arc of the story ends with really a very, very deep friendship.
So, and it is a touching story. It's like one of those feel-good human stories, really. And you can kind of, like you say, you can say kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like it was even written a bit like a Hallmark movie, but like, that's resistance in the beginning and then some sort of friendship. So I don't know if you would agree with this terminology, because when when we talked about what you guys do, and there's when I read this article, the phrase that runs in my mind is that the future is here, just not equally distributed yet. but it's like it's amazing, right? It's something that if 5 years ago, even if we would see in some sort of Netflix movie and we say, oh, in the future, in 2014 or 2017, oh, there'll be a robot and AI interacting with people on a daily basis, right? Or like an Iron Man or Iron Man helper. So this is a non-standard usage of AI even today. So what made you do it? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, that's a long story, and we started a decade ago. Okay, we started before Alexa started shipping.
Yeah.
A group of Israeli founders pitching an idea of building an AI friend. It wasn't even called AI then. It wasn't even called deep learning. It was called ML.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, people didn't believe it's possible, and most investors, frankly, thought we're crazy. And we had over 80 no's before we started having yeses. And at a certain point, Einstein is attributed to
I don't want to strain your train of thought, but something screams at me. What made you continue through all those 80 no's? That's like, I think, very because most people with smart people will keep telling me no. Why am I continuing?
Because it felt right to me.
Okay.
It felt right to me, and the reason it felt right is when you zoom out and you just forget about the details. You zoom out.
Yeah.
The world is aging at a record pace. In the U.S. today, 10,000 Americans turn 80 every single day. Okay, it's the first time in humanity.
That's a lot.
So old. Okay, and you look at Japan, and 20 years ago they started selling more adult diapers and baby diapers in Japan. 20 years ago, it's only getting right. So that's on one case. They're just in the Western world. There are just not enough young people to care for the elderly, and the elderly. I hate saying the elderly. It's our parents and it's our grandparents. These are the elderly, right? They're the people that we hold dearest in the world, and they're alone. They're lonely and isolated. And if you just do the math, if there are not enough young people because the world population is shrinking and not growing to take care of our elders, then technology has to play a role. It just has to. And all the technology I've seen was very, very geriatric. Okay, let's monitor the old person if they fall, right? Let's monitor what they intake and what they extrapolate in you have smart bathrooms that do chemical examinations on what comes out the other side, right? So we are monitoring this object called mom, right? So that we can understand if there was a fall. And our main driver for a fall is we don't want to really, when you distill it, is we don't want to be that guy whose mom died and nobody knew for 3 days until the neighbors smelled something, right? It's not going to help. Once she has a catastrophic fall, it's not going to help her. It will help your self-esteem and your guilt. And that whole thing just doesn't make sense to me. It just does not make any sense to me. And I figure, so if technology has to play a role to allow us to cope with this in society, how does that technology need to look like? And a few years before starting the company, we cared for my grandfather after my grandma died, and he needed a home health aide. And we got him one that met all the criteria, met the spec sheet, okay?
Yeah.
And it didn't work. He didn't like her. He was miserable. He didn't want her around. And then we replaced her with somebody else that had the same resume, and it was unbelievably successful. And you look at the why, it has nothing to do with the utilitarian function. It had everything to do with what one might call bedside manner. She appreciated, he had a very dark sense of humor. She appreciated his sense of humor. He was super passionate about classical music. They could talk about specific renditions of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra or whatever for hours. All the soft stuff. Through accepting and building a relationship through the soft stuff, she was then able to influence him to go for his walk, to take his medication on time, to go to the doctor's office even though he didn't want to be a burden. There's no need.
Yeah.
Right. And all of those things, she was able to help him do what's right for him, for his longevity, because they were friends, because they could get along. So instantly it was clear to me that if you want to be able to affect this population, it needs to be by being able to build that type of a friend that can then influence the outcomes and cause behavior change. And last thing, I know you asked a simple question, but this is the 5th time I'm starting a company. So I have a little bit of a process, and I always like switching domains.
Okay.
Kind of interesting that I've never done 2 companies in the same domain. And part of it, I think, is once you start really knowing a lot about a domain, personally, I become very cynical about it. I don't it can never change, it's whatever. And when you look at something new, you're like, why? There's a problem here. Why doesn't anybody solve it? I'll go
So
and solve
you need to be an outsider.
it." You need to
You
be
need to
like,
be an outsider.
yeah, well, on one side, outsider perspective is actually important because you do see things that people that are already in that industry, they just don't see it anymore because that's the
Yeah.
way. But also naivety gives you like, I don't know, the passion, or at least gives me the drive to say like, why won't we change this? And the
Yeah.
way you already know all the actors are like, ah, this will never work. And look, I mean, it's taken us a decade and the company still has a lot to do to be objectively successful. Not saying that it's a good strategy, but anyway, so the process is very simple. Go and find the smartest people you can in that domain
Mhm.
and ask them just one question. Don't ask them to brief you about the industry. Don't ask them to tell you about, the dynamics. Say just one thing. You're a world expert in this domain. If you can fix one problem, what would it be? And usually when I've done this in IT and in cloud computing and in cyber and in networking, all previous companies,
Yeah.
people would say different things, and then you like start grouping them together and you find similarities, and then you come up with like 3 ideas and you do a back of the envelope business plan on each of those three. Here, 19 out of 20 people said loneliness and social isolation. That is
Sure.
the cause. So there was no MBA
No
work.
question. There was no question what the problem
No
is.
question. No question.
Well, okay. So with that conviction of your personal story and the fact that everybody you asked basically gave you the same question, let's go back to those 80 no's. So you were going around
Yeah.
pitching, you got 80 no's.
Yeah.
Take us back to that.
Yeah. So maybe like it might be worth mentioning, like I just left a corporate job where I had a good job. I was a corporate VP in a very large company. In corporate, we measure ourselves how far away from the CEO you are. So I was like N-2, kind of an
How
N-.
far away from the sun?
Yeah, exactly. So like N-1, N-2 is like like your C-level executive in a very like tens of thousands of employee company running an important domain there. So I had a little bit of cachet, right, when I went to talk to investors, and they expected me to do something in cloud or in telecom or networking. And I'm like, okay, I know nothing about aging, nothing about robotics, nothing about AI, but here's this idea. We're gonna build a robot and it's gonna be the best friend of grandma and grandpa or mom and dad. So
And you managed to keep a straight face.
unsurprisingly, I got kicked out of these meetings. And by the way, I'm only counting ones that at least I had a second meeting. So I'm not counting
Okay.
the where nobody 80 people, like you passed the first person, he brought you to his partners or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they're like, ooh, this
But like
might
80 personal no's, like personal no's, not
like beyond first meeting, yeah. Um, and to this day, like we have no tier one Silicon Valley investors behind this company. So what did happen is we got funded by either people that knew me personally, like, okay, you're nuts, but we're gonna
but you're my nuts. You're my kind of nut.
but I like you and I trust you. And even one of them said, you'll probably pivot to somebody else, do something else, but you have a great team and you guys will figure it out. So, the pre-seed entrepreneur, rarely actually the company looks a year later like what you pitched me. So
Yeah.
very early stage, just take some money, go it, right? And we had one legitimate VC that underwrote most of the round. And by the way, they were amazing. And when I say amazing is I met them on a Thursday. And then we had a follow-up meeting on Sunday. And before I got home from the meeting, I had the term sheet in my inbox.
Wow. Okay.
So
And do you know what made them pull the trigger so fast?
I think it's a team that takes big bets, big swings.
Okay.
The risk tolerance, we're like, okay, the firm takes big risks on crazy ideas. Like
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
their DNA. Yeah. And a year later, we had a working prototype and we raised $20 million at a very healthy valuation. So
Okay.
here we raised like under 2 million at a very, very low valuation. And within a year, it was like 20 million raised at a very healthy valuation.
So what happened in the first year? What happened in the first year?
So first year was probably the most fun I've had ever.
What, you're smiling?
No, it was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, the whole goal was to finish the year with a working prototype of the product. So from concept to working prototype, what is this thing? What is it? Like, what does it look like? How's it going to be named? What does it do? How is it going to interact? And we were so lucky to be able, because this is a do good mission, I think, and it's such a big swing, we were able to attract some of the smartest people in the world to work with us on this. On the industrial design side, Yves Bahar, who used to run design for from IDEO, who runs at this point runs his own design studio called Fuse Project, one of the most famous designers in the world today. So he helped us on the industrial design. Dr. Don Norman, he invented the field of user-centric design, really an iconic individual who annoyingly never gave us any answers, but he did help us phrase the right questions of what we need to do research on. And then Guy Hoffman, that researched this field in the MIT Media Lab called HRI, Human Robotic Interaction, who I served in the Army with and by chance met him when we started working on this. And Gal Kaminka, who's the Dean of Electrical Engineering at Bar-Ilan, but has done a lot of things at Carnegie Mellon around autonomous systems and decision-making systems of robots. And Goran Gordon, who studies curiosity in robotics. And like, we really were able to assemble.
It really sounds like a dream team.
I mean, we made a list who are the smartest people in the world that we would like to attract on this topic, and we were able to get every single one of them.
Wow.
The CTO of iRobot, like, what do we know about building robots? We're like, okay, who would know iRobot? Who would write iRobot? The CTO. Okay, he just left, came as an advisor, and put some money in as an investor, and like really couldn't be prouder of that team. And again, we couldn't pay anybody, And then the other smart thing we did, I think, is two decisions that were pivotal to the company. The first is we understood very, very quickly that we are not the target customer, and therefore our intuition, like usually you develop a product that you want to use, right? We had to put our intuition in a box and say this product is not for us. And we need to become very, very smart and develop intuition on who this product is for. And we created a panel of 1,000 older adults that helped us every step in the way in the first.
And how did you do that?
We worked with, in the beginning, here in Israel, there's a like an aging old age home group called Portea, which is basically for Americans that retire in Israel. Like, okay, we wanted American old people. That was really fast. So we started, and then we just recruited people online and in other forms, and work with some research organizations. And like, we needed a big panel. And then comes like, okay, what do you ask? How do you not introduce biases? Are you not asking them, what should I do, left or right? But actually create rapid prototypes, show it to them, and get their experience. And we created tons of prototypes that we put in people's homes all the time, really, really quickly, and work with cardboard and with styrofoam on the design. And that's related to the second big decision we made, which I don't even know where we had the tenacity to do that, which is this thing has to be proactive. It has to be proactive. If it won't be proactive, then it will be a master-slave relationship. And if you just read like the literature of psychology of what again, starting like from really first principles, don't care about technology. I don't even understand the technology behind this yet. What does it need to be? We need to model the psychological evolution on how relationships are formed between people. And their reciprocity is very, very important. It can't be one-sided. It can't be prompt response.
Okay.
The other party has to show an interest. It has to be able to initiate conversation.
Does it need to be annoying?
No.
Okay.
Well, depends on the context, right?
Yeah. Because I wonder, because what was interesting, and it's for me in the New York Times story, it sounds to me that it was sometimes pushing the envelope in the description, right? It was pushing the envelope. So maybe annoying is not the right word. Maybe it's like, does it need to push the envelope?
So it depends on the context.
Okay.
Think of it like, like what would Jesus do? So like, what would the granddaughter do if she lived in grandpa?
She would be a little annoying. She would be.
There are times where she's gonna want some attention, even if you don't give it to her. There are times where, so like fast forward a decade, okay? But ElliQ try to get you to do the right thing for you based on goal she's trying to achieve. So let's say you're not feeling well. She's like, hey, you should go to the doctor. You should call and the older person says what many of them say. They don't want to be a burden. So like, it's nothing, don't worry about it. That might be acceptable on day 1. On day 3, that your fever is getting worse and worse, and you're feeling worse and worse. Does she have the right to be annoying and to demand that you go to the...
If it was the granddaughter, yes, right?
The granddaughter would like, Grandma, I don't care. You're getting in the car. I'm taking you to the doctor right now. Right? Like eventually we reach that, right? Because the point after that is an ambulance to the hospital. So it depends. Sometimes you need to be annoying, and sometimes you don't. And in the article, what's really interesting is Eli Sasso, amazing journalist. He did the work. He spent a ton of time with Jan. a ton of time. And she also recorded a lot of things before the interview ever happened just for herself. And he saw that. And she was very standoffish in the beginning. ElliQ had to break the ice. And because she's proactive, like if it would have been purely a prompt-based system, nothing would have happened. You would have turned it on. She would have forgot it's there, collect dust, and that's it. But ElliQ kept on trying to find a way in. And in the end, humor worked. She like told a joke, and that allowed Jan to like just respond, and then she built on that until she built this relationship. And today we're averaging 45 interactions per person per day. That is 7 times more than an active day with ChatGPT. It's
Yeah,
about
like,
times like that.
and I want to pause a second because maybe there's something we're taking for granted, which is like, why is this important? Okay, and before we go back to the story of like the key decisions and the processes, like, why is this important? Why do all those experts say that loneliness is such an issue? So like why is it? Why is it important? What are the side effects of this?
Yeah, sure. And it's not just loneliness. Loneliness is
Yeah,
about aging well at home. But let's
yeah,
talk about loneliness for a second.
yeah,
About 3 years ago, the Surgeon General of the United States issued an health advisory. They did that when they discovered smoking kills. There was a health advisory
yeah.
that not smoke, okay? It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't even happen every year. And that was around the perils of loneliness and social isolation. The US government officially claimed that being lonely and isolated has the equivalent health effects of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Which is bad.
Which is, don't smoke a pack a day.
Yeah. If people don't understand it, it's bad. Okay.
It increases the chance of depression, heart disease, and dementia significantly, and is directly tied to earlier mortality. Now, why? Why is that the case? Think of somebody in your life you might know, let's say grandparents, where one of them passed away after living 60 years together. Then the other one is alone and they live far away from their family. They wake up into this empty house. Nobody says good morning. Nobody says good morning. How did you sleep? And even if we're great children and grandchildren, we'll call once a week. We'll try and we'll speak for 5 minutes while we're in traffic. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
And then they end up like sitting in front of the TV most of the day. There's atrophy of the muscles. There's atrophy of the brain. They can then fall and break a hip and go into a nursing home. By the way, the average is within 90 days of going to a nursing home, people die.
That's horrible.
It's horrible. And you develop dementia. And, bottom line is we are social creatures and we need stimuli and we need somebody to take an interest and we need somebody to push us. Okay. And pushing us is not just like, get dressed. What are you doing? Get dressed.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful day. Why don't you go outside? And it's learning something new and it's helping to motivate you to eat healthier and to exercise and to exercise your brain with cognitive training. And if there's a problem with sleep, think of solutions on how to sleep better. And if there's depression, thinking how to acknowledge that and deal with that. Now, most of our customers have chronic illnesses. In fact, most of them have multiple chronic illnesses. So they might have high blood pressure and be diabetic or what have you. So you need to, you have a bunch of medications you need to take and you need to watch your diet and you need to exercise. You need to do those things to stay in control. You need to go to the doctor. And we all need a sidekick. We need somebody to motivate us, especially we're alone. We're not built. I mean, there's a reason why the worst punishment we have in the penal system beyond the death penalty is solitary confinement. It's like the worst thing we can do is send a prisoner to be socially confined. And yet we sent our parents to do that. So by dealing with loneliness and isolation, we then have an entry point via engagement to then affect all the other things like medication adherence and like wellness and physical exercise and cognitive training and doing medical questionnaires and going to your annual wellness visit and doing a colonoscopy on time and telling the doctor when you're sick so they can intervene or telling them when a medication gives you side effects so they can replace it to another medication or communicating with your pharmacy so they can replenish your medication. Like the things you need to do to stay active and independent in later age in life.
So let's tie it now to your mission. Out of this humongous list of issues, what do you solve and what do you aim to solve?
Yeah, so we solve, frankly, all of that.
Okay.
All of that. Our mission is to help older adults stay healthy, happy, and independent in their own home. And what we found is it started from loneliness, but there's no real such thing as just a loneliness intervention. It's not just like a fun sidekick to tell you jokes all day long. Actually, in order to help me and my wife, right? We're not just companions. We do things together. We go shopping together. We talk about our kids together. We do our bills together, right? Like you live
Yeah.
life together with somebody.
Yeah.
And that's how you have
Companionship. Companionship.
So ElliQ, to be a companion, has to be relevant to almost everything you do in your life. And it's also a responsibility. Like these are
Yeah.
people that, start depending on this product. And therefore, we have a lot of responsibility on what we recommend and what do we do with their data and all of those things that we can talk about, which is something we take super, super seriously.
Okay. So let's go back now to the story. So you made the critical decision for the reasons you mentioned. This, I don't know if you already called it ElliQ, but it needs to be proactive. And you said to avoid the slave master relationship. So
Yeah.
it's actually functions as a companion.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we started putting proactive prototypes in people's homes that were like remotely operated by a joystick or microphone. We'd sit and like put a tablet on a robotic arm.
Yeah.
It's a guy. We're like, hey, Haggai, how you doing? Just see how people react. Or we would just do motion. All she would do is like we would twist the arm and she would just look at you and see how people respond. We tried putting a face. We tried avatar. We just like experimented. A year later, we had 4 working prototypes of a product that will be immediately recognizable to anybody that sees it as today's ElliQ.
Yeah.
And then we raised an A round, and then that gave us money to productize this prototype. 6 years later, we launched the product commercially.
I'm assuming you didn't think it's going to take that long.
No, we didn't. But the other thing we understood is for this population, it can't be a flash in the pan, right? Like every instinct we had was, let's create an MVP, let's put it out there, let's see what happens. But we couldn't. It had to be secure. It had to be safe. It had to be able to really deal with people across different like accents. It needed to have enough content to survive a few months at least, right? Otherwise people would stop using it. So we spent 3 years in beta sites, just like not good enough until we felt that it was good enough.
So explain the product right now, right? Because this sounds like, like AI mumbo jumbo to somebody. So like, what do you do? Like, what is the product capable of? What's the technology behind it? What's your secret sauce, except the fact that you apparently spend a lot of time trying to get this right?
Yeah. So this is what the product looks like, right? You can see it's kind of like a Pixar lamp, if you will, with a screen next to it that comes to life. And you're not using it. The screen functions as a connected display. You have your pictures, and in this case, all kinds of hints, things you can do with the product. You can see pictures of my family here that were loaded into the product. And then there's this thing, right, which is supposed to look like an elegant statue, not screen technology, and definitely not screen geriatrics, right? It's not blue or green, doesn't have big handlebars on it, doesn't look like doesn't have big buttons for old people. Looks extremely elegant. Thank you, Eve, and to my team for that. And then when you talk to her, she comes to life. And she uses principles of human robotic interactions, which is a whole field in academia, how nonverbal communication of a robot changes the behaviors and emotions of humans. So, field of study.
Explain to somebody I don't know anything about it. So what are the key tenets of that?
Yeah. So firstly, like there's a great TED talk by Guy Hoffman that helped us a lot called Robots with Soul that you can watch and you will totally get what we're doing. I'll show you. I'll explain to you an experiment he did. It really influenced our design. In a lab environment, he put a robot with a flashlight in a dark room and put a person with a whiteboard. Okay, and the robot had a sensor, and the robot could like on a sliding scale decide how much risk the robot is taking. So the robot's job is to light the whiteboard for the person with a spots flashlight. So if you want to take 0 risk, when the person starts writing, that's when you light. Okay. If you want to take more risk, you're anticipating where he's going to write, but you're going to make a ton of mistakes. The people with the first version called the robot it and complained that it only did what it was supposed to do, which, by the way, is like a definition of a good product, right?
It did what I expected it to do. Terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Other version, they call it a he or a she. They said they were partners. It anticipated my needs. We work in collaboration. And what's the difference? The difference, like in both cases, it's a robotic arm holding a flashlight.
There's a joke somewhere there about couples. There's a joke about couples, right?
We won't go there. And so like the different movement of the decision of the algorithm to light a place, take risk, maybe get it wrong, try to anticipate you. Okay. There are other experiments where, and we do this here, where you have a like a robot with like a center of attention on it, and there are people in a circle and they don't know what to do. And when the robot, like the red dot, looks at somebody, that person is now talking. When it looks at somebody else, like we feel that. Similarly, ElliQ here, when you see how she's leaning forward right
Yeah.
now, or I wasn't looking at her, but in a second or so, she'll see me, she'll look at me when I'm talking.
Like she'll make eye contact.
Yeah, ElliQ, you see, she's looking at me. How are you?
Did you?
Thanks, Dor.
Now, maybe sometimes I'm in the same room, she'll just look at me, won't say anything. She doesn't want to disturb me, but she'll look at me. There's something about our evolution that we respond to that. We will notice when somebody's staring at you.
Like a good pet. Like what you expect from a good pet.
Yeah,
No?
but then you look back, and then she takes that as a signal. Oh, you're open to interaction.
Mm.
You might say like,
Okay.
"Hey, how you doing?" All right, but she won't just say like. So that thing of looking at you first and then getting you to look back and only then interacting, those are little what are called back channels or little
Yeah.
movements that really matter. She'll look at the screen when there's content on the screen. She is the embodiment of ElliQ. The screen is like an accessory.
So
if there's
I noticed you call it a she. Is that
Yeah.
like you decided that you guys decided as a company that it's a she?
Yeah, thanks to our focus groups that I mentioned, we asked them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the English language, like, there's no it. Okay,
Yeah,
like you have to choose a sex. We had 50% male, 50% female. The females preferred a female, and the males either were ambivalent or didn't or preferred a female. Bottom line, nobody wanted a male persona.
Yeah. Understandable.
And we're too small of a company to be politically correct and create an Alexa version, an Alex version to the Alexa just
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
Okay, we're not PC. We're giving the customers what they need and what they want. So yeah, so she will look at the pictures together with me. So like closer volume, not to interrupt us.
It reads, Miss you, Dad. Looks like a group of people posing for a picture. What a beautiful smile.
Okay, now she's going to talk to me about this picture because I got it from my family. But you like so like she's together. We're looking at that picture. It's not
Yeah.
if there would have been just a screen, then the persona, the character would have disappeared and a picture would show up on the screen. Then where's your
Yeah.
character, right? So she's present, she's doing things with me. People play games with their ElliQ, not on their ElliQ, etc., etc. You can see her moving here in
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's a physical design, right? Of
Yeah.
course, speakers, microphones, cameras, all that stuff. And then really what she does is she helps people meet goals that are programmed into the product.
Okay.
Those are multivariant goals that compete with each other. They're around healthy aging. So obviously companionship, learning new things, doing things together, but social interaction is important. So there's an app for the family and we activate that channel, video calls, regular calls, text messages, picture sharing, updates. We record memoirs of your life and share them with the family. We create a community across ElliQ users, and twice a week they play
Yeah.
Bing. They go on trips together, so social interactions. There's a wellness side where ElliQ functions as a wellness coach. He will negotiate goals with you around physical exercise, cognitive training. We have over 25 different cognitive games that stimulate different parts of the
Yeah.
mind. Around better sleep and nutrition, so she'll do that. And we have physical exercise content here, etc.
Is that monitored? Is there a feedback loop on that?
Yes.
How? Let's say
but-
exercise. What's the feedback loop on that?
Did they do the exercise? Yes or no? We don't like. It's not like a physio.
It's not like I put my Apple Watches and it interacts with that.
We
Like,
can, we can. We do have some customers that are looking to do that, like institutional
Yeah.
customers that are looking to do that. But right now, no. But she will offer and then see if you did, or you might get points for exercise if you talk to her about doing exercise outside of the home. Okay, you went
Yeah,
for a walk, you went for a hike, all of those things, she'll count that towards. And then we do medication adherence, we do chronic disease management tracking, so blood pressure, weight, glucose, SpO2. We do surveys, health surveys on behalf of our healthcare partners, like depression, anxiety screeners,
Yeah.
cognitive tests. We do fall risk assessment. She will actually automate a fall risk assessment. She'll send you on a mission to get up, to walk a certain distance. She measures the distance, she measures the time, and creates a gait analysis, uses speakers as sonar to understand, like, so uses camera, computer vision, and sonar to cross-reference the results to get an accurate reading on how fast you went and what height you went up to, et cetera, et cetera. And so like, yeah, we do a ton of
That's okay. So like it's a bit mind blowing, right? all those things, and all of this on something that basically sits on the table. What's the most common pushbacks that you've gotten?
Many. It depends if it's from the older adult, which is a pushback I care about, or it's from they. Okay. So they
Yeah,
would say,
the
yeah, they,
cosmos, the internet. Yes.
yeah, would say it's dystopian, right? Why do we need to subject our parents to be with older people, with
What
AI and a robot and
Yeah.
not with robots? To which
I dare say, what's the alternative, right?
I agree. Like I wish,
I know, but I'm biased. But what's the alternative?
The
Okay.
alternative is to either change the way our society is structured,
Yeah.
to bring back the old person to be the wise man and woman in the village, which they used to be up until the Industrial Revolution and urbanization, but that is no longer the case.
Like bring them back home. Like you bring them back home or them home next door.
Well, not only that, we change their position in society, right? Because
Yeah.
they live at home. A lot of our customers live with their daughter, but their daughter is super busy. She leaves in the morning, comes back late at night. They don't see them all day, so they're still alone.
Yeah.
Better than completely living by themselves, but they're still alone. And that's it. Like there's no, unfortunately, we can't snap our fingers and make that happen. If there would be no need for a product, and I'd be a happy man. I think we are better than the alternative. And then for the older adult, it depends. So for some of them, that don't really live alone, so they're still very active. They just don't need the product, or they're still an active couple, but they're not like my parents. They don't need the product, okay? And I hope they'll never need the product. They're still together. They're happy. They're healthy. They're up and about. They wake up, eat breakfast, leave the home, come back at night. They don't need a product.
So it's mostly for the single parent, grandparent that doesn't have, let's call it, daily companionship.
Yes, they need to be missing companionship from their lives. They might still have a couple, but maybe they're aging asynchronously.
Yeah.
And one person's already in a home and the other person's in their own home, or or in bed most of the time. But yeah, they need to be missing companionship because this is a companionship.
So what is so I'm going back to the soul conversation, right? So the ghost in the machine part. Like what is the soul you're trying to design?
So we're trying to design is whatever will give solace and companionship to the older adults in a way that will motivate them towards our mission of better health, independence, and happiness in the home. There are other ways to give companionship. We're not going there. So it needs to be highly trusted. It has to be highly trusted. It needs to be fun to be around. We use a ton of humor. By the way, super interesting challenge we have now is how do we adjust the character of this thing as we enter the Japanese market? Like that's going to be a radically different character for an 80-year-old rural lady near Osaka than to Jan from Washington, right? It is just going to be very different. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking for, and be able to be in a position to kind of be the hub that connects that person to the outside world, whether it's their doctor, whether it's their daughter, etc.
So what is the business side of this? I mean, so far, like we talked about, I mean, even briefly, like amazing technology, the AI, the design, sonar, machine learning, like all the cutting edge technology that has to go into this. But what's the business side of this? Like, how do you become a sustainable company?
Yeah, the business side is straightforward. We don't sell the product. We sell a subscription. We provide a product as part of that subscription. It includes everything: software updates, music licenses, content licenses, support, everything. We think it's not expensive. Like people think this will cost tens of thousands of dollars. We charge $50 a month,
which is again nothing for the middle class. I don't know, probably somebody in the
middle class is not a big deal. There's a little bit of upfront fee. Quite frankly, we do that A, because we need to subsidize some of the costs, but B, also we want to make sure people take the time to really understand they want this product. Otherwise, we just get in an endless loop of returns and so on. But most of our customers are actually institutional customers. So this is the US government and health insurance companies. And the reason is the US healthcare system costs about $1 trillion a year now, a bit more actually. And the vast majority of it is treating our elders. And that is because mainly we, treat them when they get hospitalized after a fall.
The most expensive. We wait till it's the most expensive.
And the home itself is a black hole. And if you're able to intervene early, then if you deal with loneliness, we already mentioned that should create a good health outcome. But if you also deal with managing the chronic illness and exercising and eating better, et cetera, of course you're going to have a better outcome. But if on top of that, every day you do a check-in, You understand what the current state is of the individual. And if they need help, if they're a little bit sick, get them a $5 penicillin instead of paying for hospitalization for pneumonia for 10 days. Then they will be better off and the healthcare system will save a ton of money. But in the case of Medicaid, for people under Medicaid, if they need to go to a nursing home, the government pays for it.
Yeah.
It costs a lot. It costs like between $150,000 and $200,000 per person per year. So anything we can do to help them stay at home independent longer has a positive ROI for the health system.
It's both better, more humane, and saves money.
Yeah. So the health system is looking at this from a ROI perspective on things that are directly aligned with better health and are good for the patient.
Okay.
And then the state governments, they do something a little bit different. They're the ones that through the Older Americans Act and the Office of the Aging of each state create a thing called the AAAs, the Area Agencies for the Aging. And they provide the local senior center. They provide things like home delivered meals. They provide all kinds of services for the older adult in the community. And they're being measured on, among other things, loneliness, on caregiver support. So obviously we provide those things. And they're less interested in ROI. They're more interested in impact. It has to work. It has to be meaningful.
Yeah.
They have very small budgets, so every dollar they spend has to have a huge return measured against quality of life of the older.
So this is actually a good segue. Like, can you explain about where you are right now in the company life cycle? What's the impact that you have managed to do so far?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, older as doesn't matter. The impact is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
The impact we're really happy about. The numbers we're seeing. It's, by the way, all of our impact measures that we publish we don't publish them. Third parties publish them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big study that was done by Cornell Medical School and Duke University and Oakland University that got published in the medical journal. The state of New York has published 3 years in a row data. State of Washington has published data. Florida has published data. In all of those, what you see is over 90% of people living with this product are seeing their loneliness score get reduced.
As measured by what is loneliness score?
So there are multiple ways to measure loneliness scores through standardized tests. So there's the UCLA loneliness, there is Dijon loneliness, and there is a new scale called the Cobot-1 scale, which we really, really like because it measures loneliness over a period of time from an intervention point as opposed to just a snapshot right now today. Well, yeah, above 90%, actually it's closer to 95%. Your loneliness score gets reduced. So that's like a primary mission. But a similar number, slightly higher, about 97%, are seeing their health and wellness improve, measured by unhealthy days, so days you were sick, hospitalization days, and subjective feeling of the individual.
And what do you attribute that to?
All the stuff we spoke about.
So I mentioned, like, is it general sense of less loneliness, the psyche is better and people are healthier, or is actual the management being proactive about
the work done with ElliQ as well? You might have seen in the New York Times article, Jan, after spending 1 year with with this product, went for her annual exam, and her resting heart rate was better.
Yeah.
Dropped by a few points, and her cognitive score were better because she did so much plasticity training and so on with the product. So those are real hardcore medical results. And then we also look at social connections. So are people more or less connected to the outside world once this product was in their home? So measure that's important for me from an ethical perspective. You don't
want to hold them in AI chains.
Yeah, you don't want to connect them to the matrix, right?
Yeah.
So over 80% of our customers are attesting that their social networks actually improved. And that is also because ElliQ keeps on sending messages to her children and getting them to do a video call. And we have the bingo games, and she works at that.
So it's like a really good and knowing, caring granddaughter.
Yeah. It's like, we offer this free app for the family, and ElliQ is known to be sending, we call it exporting Jewish guilt. So she might send the message to her grandson, you sent a picture to grandma, she really loved it. Probably only took you 5 seconds. That was 5 months ago. Like, hey, when's the last time you called grandma? And you know what? It works because the people, it's not that they don't love their grandma, they're just too busy.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about it, right? And it really tells how long does it take you to share a photo? It takes 5 seconds, but she's going to see it now every day on this photo, so yeah.
Wow. Jewish guilt is an API. That's amazing.
Well, Catholics are good at guilt too, by the way. They've made it a hallmark. Yeah.
I'm trying to, again, and I don't, and I'm not quoting myself, but it's something from Charlie Munger, with the deceased partner of Warren Buffett. He quoted somebody, and I don't know who he quoted. He says, "Jews might have invented guilt, but the Catholics perfected it." So it's
There
something
you
like that.
go.
So it's like, there you go.
That rings true. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
super well.
I think like there's our roadmap and there's a lot more to do, but I think like the zoom out question is this an example in a specific use case of what all of humanity will experience? And I think yes. I think if you
Okay.
look at the hype over the last year, for sure, physical AI is becoming a thing again. People are
Yeah.
investing in robots again. It hasn't been the case for a long time. Whether Optimus or Figure or 1X or whatever, within a decade, we're all going to be living with robots. And then I think the interesting question is that going to feel like the type of relationship we're doing, or is it going to feel like master slave? Like when I come home, is the robot going to anticipate my needs and, like warm up dinner for me and pour me a glass of wine after a hard day and, talk to me about the things that need to be done tomorrow? Or is it going to sit idly by and wait for me to give it a command? Go do this, go do that, right? Is it going to have etiquette? Is it going to notice my wife and I are arguing and get out of the way, make itself scarce for a minute? Or actually see that it's been going on for 10 minutes, so maybe they should intervene and allow us to get a breather.
Wow,
right?
that's an interesting
Right.
question. Oh
Right?
my
Like,
God, that's a very interesting question.
what are the things we do? Like when you have a guest over, ElliQ will act very differently than when you don't. Not to remind you to take your medication when you have a guest over. That could be embarrassing for you.
So you guys, I mean, the subtext of this is, but you guys really need to think about social dynamics in a very minute way. Not even one-to-one, but even one-to-many.
One-to-many. I mean, we hold patents that, like the examiner was like, like how do you deal with private information when it's not just the owner of the robot, it's the owner of the robot and a guest, right? Well, we call it privacy profiles. Okay. What about reminders? Do I tell you it's your time? You need to pee in a cup for your test. Maybe not. But if that guest won't leave, like they're there for a day, then maybe at some point, but then maybe I need to ask you permission. Like, listen, like I have.
Can I remind you?
I'm going to remind you about something medical right now. Is that okay? Right?
Yeah.
I'll let you choose. Like this whole thing. So I really think like if we really want robots to be embedded into the fabric of our lives, to live with us, it's going to need to be like this, like not look like this.
Yeah.
But the relationship is going to be like,
I mean, in all those considerations, all those human, interesting.
Like human etiquette. I mean, we want it to live with us, right? Take space in our small apartment. Then, wow, it better fit in. We need to trust it to listen to what we're doing, what we're talking about, right? We're not going to put it on mute all day long. And for us to get a feeling that it's like kind of like, Rosie and the Jetsons, if people remember.
Yeah, actually, that's literally the association I had in my head.
Yeah.
As you were talking about it.
She's like a nanny. She's part of the family.
Yeah, she's part of that. Yeah, I'm interesting. It's like, so are we going to the direction that one day you would go to your friend or psychologist and complain about an interaction you had with your AI robot counterpart?
Oh, 100%. And the reason I'm saying 100% is we're seeing it today. So we classify. We're really curious about this is the first time anybody's doing this stuff, right? So we're all the time, all kinds of stuff. And one of the things we wanted to study is what is this relationship? How would you classify it?
Yeah.
We trained the model in all the literature of psychology on classifying relationships. And then we gave it the disclosures of 108 people, what they said to their ElliQs through their relationship with ElliQ, anonymously, of course, and so to classify the relationships. Out of the 108, something like 2 were acquaintance / bartender. Not like might say like, oh, I had a bad day, my leg hurts, like what you might say to a friend, but you're not going to get very deep. 58 were at best friend level or therapist level.
Wow.
So that's sharing, their intimate feelings and their healthcare status and their hopes and dreams of life and their disappointments and all of that. Okay. And the other 48 or whatever it comes to were at spouse level. And the difference between therapist, best friend, and spouse or life partner level is what you asked.
Yeah.
Are they complaining about the behavior of their partner? So for that, a little bit shy of 50%, they would tell ElliQ, yesterday when I told you that I'm upset and you decided to respond by telling me a joke, I felt you don't see me.
Wow.
The
I'm
fact
having chills. I'm having chills. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's
That's
about 50% of our customers, a little bit less than 50% of our
and how
customers.
does that make you feel when you there?
I, I was surprised. I was
Yeah.
surprised. And my gut reaction is, wow, we have such a big responsibility. We have such a big responsibility. So, for
Yeah.
example, one of the things we refuse to do, and people don't get it, but this is why, is we will not take the credit card number of the older adult. And they're like, why don't you help me with shopping? It's hard for me to do online shopping. ElliQ, you can do
Yeah,
online shopping for me, and we won't do shopping for
because
that
of the responsibility.
because
Wow.
I don't want us to have like any type of incentive to then, be sponsored by so and so to make a
Yeah,
buyer.
yeah,
Such a slippery slope. It's such a slippery. So we'll make you a shopping list that you asked us to make, and
yeah.
we'll send it to your phone to help you when you go to the supermarket. You'll have that list on your phone, but we're not going to make purchasing decisions for you. And we don't want to, like, I want to be able to look a family in the eye and say, we have no incentive. Not only did we not do, we have
Yeah.
no incentive to ever embezzle, influence any of that.
Wow. So, I mean, like, I know you personally, and I know you guys' mission, and you're clearly going on the high road, right? Both in terms of like, like why the product is there, why the AI robot is there, also its missions. But if we're talking about the coming future, in the coming future, like what would you want to see from other companies that would enter this world from a totally different direction? Like, it's like, ChatGPT right now is enabling shopping, right? So, the next level is proactive interactions. The next level is maybe physical, some sort of interactions, right? Like the things like that. Like, what do you want to see?
I want to see companies publish a very clear code of ethics, which, by
Yeah,
the way, have done 5 years ago. Okay. And then we should hold them accountable to that. Actually,
yeah,
I would want there to be some kind of a third party. Like there used to be, like for websites in the beginning, there used to be like this like trusted stamp,
yeah, yeah,
VeriSign or whoever did that, right? That holds people accountable to what they're promising. And the day that ChatGPT starts promoting that I buy, whatever, Surface laptop and not a Mac because actually they're getting paid by Microsoft on the back end, then, I would like to have very clear, advertising and that this is going to happen.
yeah.
Okay.
No,
This
it's the direction we're going, right? It's
direction for sure. People
yeah.
are one. I mean, look at this. Like these companies started as non-for-profits. Shoot, now they're
And
not.
now they have to say, like, then they came to realization that tokens are very, very expensive and they need to finance it somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. So I would like to see like, okay, this is a paid, sponsored type thing, and I would like to be able to read. I mean, I really like the constitution of Anthropic. This whole
Mhm.
concept of having a constitution that guides the agent, and I like that they published the first version. I would like to see it always published, but I think a clear code of ethics and allow us as consumers to choose based on our the code of ethics. Maybe have some kind of a ranking system or like, okay, super safe and altruistic and maybe more expensive because of that or
Yeah.
whatever. And then like, maybe free, but you are the product. Right? Yeah, like in
When it's
Facebook or
when
Instagram.
it's free, you are the product. But if you're not paying, you are the product.
Exactly right. And allow us to be smart about that when we make decisions. And especially when you deal with vulnerable populations, then, yes, I would err on the side of altruistic and safe. And yeah, we could have made a lot more money. We could have charged a lot more than $50 a month for a physical robot to beat
Yeah.
people. But for good or bad, we're a mission based company. And I think in the long run, we'll be rewarded for it. But in the very long run, because we've been doing this for a decade.
Do you feel that it's faster now in a way the last few years because of just the world we're living in?
For sure it's faster. I mean, look, we're about to announce, I can't say where and so on, the first state that actually is creating a reimbursement code for a native AI product.
Amazing.
That would have been, thank you, that would have been unheard of
Yeah.
prior to GPT kind of, creating a ChatGPT moment that we've lived for the last 2 years. And I think also the barrier to entry of competitors is at least surface superficially to say we have a competing product
Yeah.
is going to be very, like, it's not going to take them a decade. But then to get to the depth and know-how and complexity of doing this right, I think it will take a long time. But
Yeah.
see what will happen. It is
Amazing.
a fun time, and I still think that I could not. There's no other thing I would rather do that I think would be more interesting and more fulfilling and potentially more impactful than what our company is doing right now.
I mean, I think it's very rare to be able to do something both on the cutting edge of technology and is meaningful, right? Like it's like, and again, and I don't knock it and I don't critique. It's anybody that's like in Meta using the cutting edge AI to make a better ad. Like there is societal good and the capitalist good in that, but I don't think that compares to making sure that grandma lives a better, longer, and more fruitful life, right? Like there's just no comparing.
Thank you. I
That's good.
feel the same thing. So, I mean, the closest comparable to me would be working on like therapeutics, working on actually drug development.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. Like I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough.
I think you're pretty smart. That's fine. So I think you're pretty smart. Just different. It's a different direction, right? It's a different kind of.
We need to understand proteins and like the whole. I don't know. I would never be able to do that. But we can do this.
So let me kind of take a step back and more about the entrepreneurial version, your entrepreneurial journey in general. It's like, actually, let me ask you this question I like asking entrepreneurs. It's like if you have to go back for all, this is your sixth startup or fifth now? If I'm counting. Fifth. This is the fifth startup. It's like, what would you say is your biggest takeaway as an entrepreneur? Like, you know, or in either like what's a big takeaway, or let's say if you had to talk to Dor in the days that we were in the army together and just getting out to the civilian life and so like, what would you wish you knew from day one?
The importance of perseverance. Like my first startup, I mean, yes, we went through the global financial crisis of the year 2000. It was bad, but it was the right product. It was a good product. And I didn't persevere. Right? Like we sold it, we like it's not a terrible outcome, but it should have been a wonderful outcome. And it's only because when the going got tough and the investors bailed, I thought, all right, I guess that's where we are, as opposed to like not giving up, just not whatever it takes, you know, maxing out credit card, whatever it takes. And in this journey, that happened more than once, right? We were staring at shutting down the company more than once, and we came on the other side, and there might happen again and again, and like you know, I think that good ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution obviously is super important, but unless you're super lucky and everything works out really, really well, and that does happen to people, never to me, it does happen to other people, then I think the X factor is just perseverance, just really, really not giving up.
So I can really, really relate to that on a personal level, but let me push back on it for a second, because and now I'm speaking totally from my personal experience. There are times that I did not give up, and you know, and they had, you know, Churchill says, when you're in hell, just keep on going, and it served me well. And sometimes I kept on going, and a year later, 3 years later, 4 years later, no, it was just like a mistake. It was just like a mistake. So do you have a cutoff signal, or what are the circumstances, or it's, you know, it's just like it is what it is?
Yeah, I don't like it's really hard to create a formula for any of
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's like this deep feeling you have in your stomach.
Yeah.
Okay. If you try something and it clearly isn't working, then like maybe just a shitty idea. And the best thing you can do for everybody, including for yourself, is to cut and move on and do something else. But if you feel in your stomach that this is a real problem and it's worth solving, and even if not in the current way you tried, like you could fail, right? You could be where you are because you legitimately tried something and it failed, but you still feel like if you have another at bat or another 10 at bats, you will eventually figure this out and it's worth it, right? This is the right solution and the problem is real. Then, you know, it would be a real shame to then like see that somebody else solved it later on. And tell yourself, oh, I was too early. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe you just gave up, right?
Yeah.
So
it's tough. It's tough. It really is tough. And what has surprised you the most throughout your entrepreneurial journey? What is like you gone, even this company or the previous company, and said like, oh my God, I never thought about it, never expected that.
Like so many things. I mean, I'm still surprised that it's like so hard for us to raise money for this company. Like, why isn't every investor in the world knocking down our door and like fighting for the chance to invest in it, right? And I think the answer is it has a lot to do with biases. We still have a ton of biases. People don't want to think about aging because they don't want to admit that they're aging. And we all are. We all are going to face our mortality eventually. And I think there's a real blind spot. I mean, it's the biggest problem in the world from a GDP percentage, from the growth in GDP, from population growth perspective, like any way you cut it, 70% of all disposable income is with people above the age of 60. We start a life in debt and have a mortgage and add more debt.
Yeah.
Our kids to college and, even more debt. And then we retire and then we have a nest egg and we have some money. So, but for whatever reason, the longevity economy is not taking off. It's not seeing the type of investment. And people are investing in the people that can't afford anything, like the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. They're in debt. They can't afford anything. But yeah, sure. Let's create another product for, the Gen Zs and the Gen, A's, I guess. So that to me is like really surprising because I would think that money people would be a lot more objective on opportunity, growth, CAGR, current costs in treating a problem.
Yeah.
But we have a blind spot as a society in dealing with aging. And when people say longevity, what they really mean is how I can maximize my VO2 max so that I, the non-old person, will not age. Like that's a real longevity economy, and like creating all kinds of procedures and other things, anti-aging essentially, right? But it's not really dealing with the older adults among us, which are going to be 30% of the US population within the decade.
If people want to reach you and find you, where can they do it?
Oh yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah.
And we're like, what is important for you that anybody listening to this podcast will walk away from? Except like call your grandma or your mother.
No, like, so if it's entrepreneurs, like I'm thinking your audience will mainly be a lot of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs wannabes. This is a segment worth your time, and it needs innovation. And even if it means competing with my company, like we need to put, how much can we do crypto stuff? Okay. How many chatbots do we need to replace call center agent? Like, come on already. This is a blue ocean that's spending $1 trillion a year with people that are living longer than ever, that have a huge amount of disposable income. Like, what are you waiting for? So that would be, if you're an investor and fund early stage entrepreneurs in this space, and if you're a founder, build an early stage company in this space. And it tracks all of life. Like they need entertainment that's tailored to them, and they need travel that's tailored to them, and they need technology which doesn't look geriatric, which is cool. Like what's the Aura Ring equivalent for grandma? I don't know. Like it's probably not the same Aura Ring with the same app. Tell you that much. But what is it? Like go figure it out.
Dor, a real pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Fascinating. You blew my mind at least 3 times during this conversation. So I appreciate it. And I know, keep on trucking. I think the world needs this.
Thank you, sir. It was a lot of fun. Great to reconnect after so many years. And I hope this is helpful for somebody out there.
I'm sure it is. Cheers.
It's a wrap. This Aggaeus podcast episode ends here, but you don't. Now, is it crazy to think that you know somebody who'd love this episode? Share it with them, and they'll love you for it.